Before we begin, I'd like to introduce Zachary Fetter, who's the Open Data Program Manager at the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics for the City of New York. They are a co-sponsor of this fantastic NYC Open Data Week. So I'm going to turn things over to you, Zachary.
Thanks, Lisa, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of New York City's Open Data Week. If you have not been to an Open Data Week event before, the idea behind it is that our office, along with city staff from around the city, all different agencies, all different areas, make data available about the workings of city government. And there are over 3,000 data sets on nyc.gov/open data from, again, every facet of city life, from transportation, the environment, public safety, public health, everything you could possibly think of that government touches, there's data about. But one of our core values is that we want to not just make the data available to people, but make it accessible to people. And one of the ways we've done that for the last 5 years is by partnering with New York City's Civic technology group, BetaNYC, on this Open Data Week festival. And this is allowing people from around the city, in some cases around the country and around the world, to share things that they've learned from New York City's open data, from their own open data, from other topics that are related to all of this. So really excited to have Lisa here to present and moderate this panel, and looking forward to the conversation that is going to ensue. And I would say for anyone who wants to find out more about Open Data Week, if you have not already seen, looking at the open-data.nyc site, we have events running through Sunday. There's more than 100 events in total. I think we probably have some 90 plus events still to go. So you could take a look and see other events that are coming up. And again, happy to chat more about data as well. We have a daily breakfast meeting at 9 to ask us any questions, ask BetaNYC any questions, and also an afternoon happy half hour at 5 every day. So plenty of opportunity to talk to us as well, and looking forward to meeting you all.
Great. Thank you so much, Zachary. I want to thank my colleagues Sharon Eanes and Chelsea Barrett, who are helping facilitate today. And I also want to say, when we talk about FOIA content today, I will be talking about the output from FOIA requests, and proactive disclosures, responsive documents, all of this great content that is posted online, and not general information about the FOIA process. We have representatives today from, hopefully, Beryl Lipton from Muckrock is going to be joining us, Thomas Sussman, who's on the FOIA Advisory Committee. Very excited to have Beth Fiddler here from NARA, who works with the Presidential Libraries, reps from HuffPost and the Reporters Committee for the Freedom of the Press, RCFP. So let me introduce myself. I'm Lisa DeLuca. I'm a social sciences librarian at Seton Hall University, and I co-manage our data services group with my colleague Sharon Eanes, and Chelsea Barrett is also part of that group. So here we go. So here we are. Again, fabulous graphics provided by Open Data Week. And this is who will be attending today, right? There are, I was excited to have the response that we did for this program. There are many constituencies ranging from college professors, academic librarians, government agencies, technologists, nonprofits, law firms, and tax organizations as well. And everybody has a common goal of, seeking government transparency and finding the FOIA information that they need for their jobs, right? It's all very different. Obviously, the investigative journalists are on really tight timelines. A college freshman who might be finding a primary source document from the CIA FOIA library about the Bay of Pigs, not so much pressure, but the point of this conversation is there is so much great information that is posted in these FOIA libraries that is publicly available, and my goal today is to make sure you know how to access this. I'm sure some of you are very fluent in this, and for others, I hope we can teach you a few quick tricks to make your searching more efficient. So some background information. All of this with the electronic reading rooms came about in 1996 with the FOIA amendments, and that helped to push agency documentation online, okay, including the 4 categories that are listed. And then the FOIA Improvement Act of 2016 helped with proactive disclosures, because there was a rule of 3. If a document was requested more than 3 times, it would be posted online. So I know that FOIA itself, huge undertaking, huge process. We're not going to address limitations, backups, lawsuits today. We're purely focused on the content that does exist online from government agencies and nonprofits. So to make sure everybody's on the same page, FOIA libraries are repositories for documents released under the FOIA. They are also called responsive documents by federal agencies and their sub-agencies. So we know also that these documents may be full of redactions. That's okay. Again, we're just focusing on what is there today. And I wrote a paper a couple years ago and found that there were over 240 of these FOIA libraries online. So I'm sure, you know, the number is higher today that contain this information. So therefore, it's just a huge collection for researchers, and they may not know that these repositories exist because some of the items may not be found through a Google search. So we're going to think of each FOIA library as a standalone portal, okay? And we'll see why, because there's other government portals and other nonprofits that like Muckrock and FOIAMapper that are also portals of information for your research. Okay, in the article, it also discusses how terminology is still being worked on, in that each agency may use different naming conventions. So you could use either electronic reading room when you're searching, or FOIA library, or other combinations. The second point is that these FOIA responses may not be found on search engines because when information is redacted, the file format can be affected. And also the government agencies are using different technology and page viewer formatting. So therefore, these items may not be picked up in a Google search. The GSA and the government technologists did spend a lot of time adding FOIA tags to help locate these responsive documents. So that is helpful, and we'll talk about search terminology. And then, you know, a recommendation is that high school, college students, citizens can do FOIA library research activities to locate this content so they know that it exists, and it can also enhance their digital citizenship skills. So these are the naming conventions. Again, this is pulled in 2019. So it just shows you FOIA library is the winner. That's the goal for the agencies to use. But as we'll see today, different combinations of the word reading room, eFOIA, etc., are also used, which is fine. So when you're doing a Google search, in this case, this search is simply FOIA library and immigration, okay? Let's say a high school student needs to write a paper. They're not sure what agency might have this information. And that's the million-dollar question, right? Whether you are a reporter, a data analyst, where am I most likely to find this information? So simply by using the search terms FOIA library with immigration, you see right in the middle the agencies that you could look to, because again, it's not a clean process. You will have to look at, in a lot of cases, different agencies to see if the content that you are looking for exists. So you've got Immigration and Customs, the Department of Justice, and Citizenship and Immigration Services. Those all come up, as does Homeland Security. On the right side of the screen, you can also see that the main agencies, and again, these are executive branch agencies that are subject to the FOIA with some exceptions, also list their sub-agencies. So there's just so many different portals that you can go to. For historical content, obviously the CIA, FBI, many other agencies have terrific information for citizen engagement, right? So again, a student looking for primary sources is going to find all kinds of great information in the CIA reading room. And they also list content by release date or when they've posted it. So another avenue is to assess a whole collection at an agency that may give you some interesting information as well. This is the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'm just showing you in the earlier slide, we talked about the required content under the FOIA, and on the right side, it just shows you a match, for HSS, that they're showing all of these final opinions down to frequently requested records. So the information is there, and sort of as we're looking to the future, and no doubt the government technologists are doing this already, and Zachary Fetter and his group are doing this. The reports that you're finding are going to exist in so many different formats, as well as the content that the user receives might be in different formats. So that's something we want to keep in mind. So you could get a PDF, sure, but you also might be looking for metadata, which is data about the data. You may get only metadata, right? Maybe the information is restricted and you'll only see a description of the content and not the actual content. And you also may be finding more data dictionaries and data sets posted. Okay, a nod to the presidential libraries. Again, so happy Beth Fiddler is here today. There's FOIA requests in the presidential libraries, and you have to go to each one and see where it lives. Okay, there's also some vice presidential records. So here, again, this is a growing collection of information. Okay, so up till now, we have been talking about single portals. Now there are government portals that have multiple agencies included. So FOIAonline.gov, great resource. You can submit a FOIA request in here or look at records that have been posted. Okay, there's about 20 agencies here, and this list is growing. So that's another portal. Another one is ODNI. This has about 17 agencies listed. I want to double check that because this may be a list of links to the other agencies, but the intelligence community came together 2005, and here you can see, again, released records, FOIA logs, and reports. FOIA logs are very important and a very important component of the FOIA research process. Each agency has to submit these and post them publicly, so you can go in and check the status, and perhaps if it is not restricted or subject to FOIA exemptions, you will see that content publicly posted. Okay, on to Muckrock, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, spearheaded by Beryl Lipton in the FOIA category. She does amazing work Muckrock is a nonprofit collective news site. So again, requesting is happening here, posting of records is happening here. So you can, again, look for content. But they've also taken a lead on education, and I wanted to point out some of these links. And again, all of us here today, maybe, part of the conversation I want to have is how can we add to this information? How can we enhance it? You see, there's a great FOIA 101 to give you an overview. There's information about open records at the state level, which is also very important, could be a whole separate conversation. And then I really like the student resources that are here, recognizing there's different buckets of people, right? College journalists, kids who just are interested in government or maybe doing an assignment for school. Okay. And then another non-government portal that's very well known is FOIAMapper, created by Max Skalka. This is an amazing resource. And I think a very thoughtful one. There's very thoughtful content here about what is a FOIA log? What are all these different record systems that each agency maintains? And Max has contacts here, which is amazing, down to the email of what is the human I need to speak with about a FOIA request at every agency, which is fantastic. So in here live FOIA logs, as well as direct links to government documents. Okay, and that's an example of a FOIA log. It's an Excel spreadsheet, right? And this was a search I did for Bitcoin. So if you want to see what's happening with Bitcoin requests, you can go into FOIAMapper as one of your options. Okay, next. Interoperability, right? How all of this information, so there are a growing number of data sets in the FOIA libraries. Does that information get transferred over to data.gov? It can through Socrata, which is a software that I know NYC Open Data uses, and other agencies. Their goal is, enhance civic technology, open government, and there's just so many places that we can look. NYC Open Data has their data sets in data.gov, and I went on to data.gov. Again, not a FOIA library, but the nation's data repository, and did a search for FOIA, and there's a lot of content in there. So this is another place that you can check. And you see the EPA leads the way with 72 data sets in various formats. The city of Chicago is depositing data, and we know New York City is. So, and the formats listed in the middle, XML, CSV, JSON, HTML, those are all formats that all of us as researchers need to be familiar with. So in prepping for this presentation, I was so excited to find out about 10X, okay, which is a government initiative. The link at the bottom will take you to the site. There's 3 categories of information that they're looking for by March 23rd of this year, but public trust and civic life. So again, this is part of GSA. They want to support projects that help rebuild trust in government and promote civic engagement. Perfect. That's why we're here today. The only issue is you need a government email address to submit an idea. All right, so my recommendations, and then I want to open up for discussion, are how can we collaborate all these different constituencies and share information, share assignments we've given to students, share information. The FOIA Advisory Committee is doing a fantastic job. Their meetings are online. Their minutes are online. They have a dashboard that indicates where they're at with different technology and other priorities. I recommend, we need to think about training. So all of us as end users and those that are educating others, understand the implications of all these different data formats. You know, for GIS files alone, there's more than I can keep track of. And then find government employees that we can collaborate with on initiatives like 10X. And that's it. Here is a resource list. Of course, Collier and Davis's book, The Art of Access, is the gold standard in this area. And we have other resources as well that will be useful. And then that is it. I have a link to these slides, and you can email me if you have any other thoughts after our conversation, but I'd like to open things up. First, if possible, I'd like to hear from any technologists or strategy people that may have any comments, and then we'll go from there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. There's actually a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Michelle, and she says, are the logs just the list of FOIA requests they've received, and how much detail do they include?
So the logs do have, depending on the agency, they will have different information. Some will have hyperlinks to the FOIA content, and some may not.
Yes, Lisa, there is another question from Michael.
Okay.
It says, one worrying trend I've seen is just some agencies have been reducing the kinds of information they put in logs. Hope to see verbose and informative ones become a standard. Do you have any thoughts on that, Lisa?
No, I would imagine, I know that some agencies are, receive the most amount of requests. And, I don't know if this has anything to do with COVID, people working at home. But for Michael, we can definitely put it on our list of recommendations for sure.
Great. And then Loris asks if you could please show the last presentation screen showing the citations for further reading. Sure,
I will put these up. Absolutely. Yes, thank you, James. We had the Stanford Archive on there, great archive of FOIA documents. Matt Hale, if you're here, can you tell us about the assignments you've done with your classes for open records?
Sure. Thank you very much. Most of the stuff that I teach a class on the ethics of big data, and the idea is to try and work with people who are going to be data analysts, but get them to ask questions beyond sort of the technology component, because the technology sometimes allows you to do things that maybe you shouldn't do. So one of the things that I do is have our students file OPRA requests in New Jersey. That's open. That OPRA is the Open Public Records Act, which is New Jersey's version of FOIA. And so they go to municipalities and they file OPRA requests in different municipalities, the same request, but all over the state, and then we see what happens. And so the really interesting thing at the state level is that there will be towns in New Jersey that will answer the OPRA request immediately or have the information handy and ready to go without any effort on the student's part. And then there are other places where the exact same question phrased the exact same way will be met with a no, or will be met with a we can't do that, or will be met with you need to pay us 10 cents a copy, and it's 12,000 copies. So so there's a lot of variation in between what different municipalities get, and in terms of the response that people give to the same exact OPRA request, which I think is kind of interesting. And it sort of, I think, links to a lot of the stuff that Lisa has found, in that how you ask the question of FOIA, or how you explore what you're looking for, really does have a significant effect on the outcome of what you get. So if you phrase it differently, or if you are asking it in a slightly different way, some documents might come up and others will get left behind. And it's there's so much information that how you ask the question, I think is a really important thing to focus on, because I think there's a lot of variation in the responses that you can get based on that. So
Okay.
So it's I don't know to the extent of are there other states that a lot of states have their own open public records laws, and I'm wondering if to get state data, and I'm wondering if anybody has any experience doing it on the state level, and whether there's variation. My understanding is that New Jersey, where we are, has a pretty good open public records law in comparison to other places. I know elected officials complain about it all the time because everybody keeps asking for it. But so anyway, it's another thing to consider in addition to the federal, is to also think about state open public records laws and how you go about accessing those. So
okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody from that works with Zachary at the Office of Data Analytics? Anybody want to comment about that? Or I know you're dealing with city data.
I mean, I could add in one thing quickly.
Sure.
I don't know if others have thoughts here, but there is, and I think you touched on this a little bit, Lisa, quite a strong connection in New York City between our open records FOIA library and our open data portal. And one of the things that we have done is actually required by law now, is to take data that was made available to a single group or a single person through a FOIA request, and to move that information, if it is indeed like a larger part of a larger data set that can be publicly consumable by more people, to move that over to open data. And that's sort of a matter of process for us at this point, where it is an expectation that city agencies will be doing this, but also something that we report on every year on the number of FOIA requests received that contain data, and of those requests, how many of them are currently on open data, and for the ones that are not, what is the plan for putting them up, or what is the reason, the publicly stated reason. It's again, like trying to be transparent and disclosing these things for why the data set can't be made public. So there's a pretty good pipeline between these FOIA requests and the open data portal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's really important for us, from the open data perspective, to continue to maintain a accurate and up-to-date and robust set of data sets that reflect what people are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's why I'm glad we're all talking today. So many great things are happening through Zachary's program, and we all need to educate ourselves about these different formats.
And sorry, just to be clear,
yeah.
The program is spanning a bunch of different people around the city. It's certainly, I'm one of the people that's involved, but there are, we work closely with the city's technology agency to manage the program, but there's also a network of about 100 different people across city agencies and offices and commissions who are responsible for identifying and documenting and structuring and publishing their own data. So it is certainly a group effort of a whole lot of people to make information available, very similar to the process of FOIA. Like, there are entities and people that are regulating this, but really it is very much a large number of people who are involved in the whole process.
Absolutely. Okay. And your office is kind of the traffic cop, right?
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. We work again with the city's technology agency and jointly manage this together. So yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Any academic librarians want to chime in about what kind of research they may be helping facilitate?
Lisa, we do have a lot going on in the chat.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Bring it on. The links here. Let me bring up the slide, because the slides are available. Can you see this? Thank you for attending slide. Let me bring that down. The FOIA library link that's here has the slides on them, and then we'll also send out the recording as well.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And
Yes.
Michael asked if there were any areas that you think NGOs and government agencies can work better together on archives?
Definitely. That's what the Open Data program is all about, right? Like Zachary said, it's a matter of building, I think, this integration into the process, right? And like anything, finding the willing participants, right, at the agencies. So I would think you want somebody at the top driving this and willing people to help support it, right? Because again, like Zachary said, you need a whole team, technologists, data analysts, for sure.
Great, thank you. Sarah Lambden has a really interesting question. She says, are you concerned or has anyone complained that FOIA Online is sometimes more difficult to search or use as a library than a former electronic reading room on agency web pages? And she talks about the EPA's electronic reading room. It was organized by topic and contained descriptive hyperlinks, but now it directs researchers to FOIA Online, which is not nearly as easy to search. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great anecdote. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think that's the whole point of this conversation, is that there's, let's say 8 primary portals you may want to be checking. And like we tell our students here in managing information, you're going to have the workflow that works the best for you. And if something gets taken away and you're being directed to FOIA Online, and that might not be your preference, I think groups like all of us speaking today can consolidate that information and take it up to the FOIA Advisory Committee, because I know there's plans to improve searching. There's plans to I think open up all of the individual FOIA portals. So you can search across them, but we know how technology goes, right? Like some things may be great, something might get taken away, or there's a shift, and then it's going to get better again. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry, it's not where you want it to be right now.
And Michelle, she actually put in her experience using FOIA datasets, and she talked about how it's better to track in a spreadsheet and put flags on your calendar to check their status. So that could be something that attendees may think could be interesting going forward, should they opt to use the FOIA data sets as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michelle, very much for that. And, I think that you can look at on the web at at OGIS and OIP. OGIS is at NARA, and the Office of Information Policy is at the Department of Justice. This is where a lot of where the FOIA policy is decided, and they have great programming. But again, I keep signing up for it and I keep getting kicked out because I don't have a government email address. So I think it would be great to have some kind of programming directly with federal government employees once a year, maybe some kind of meeting. There's definitely, I know, maybe it's the Federal Depository Library Conference or the Government Docs Roundtable that's part of ALA. Maybe we can put something together because we don't need to talk to a programmer, but it would be nice to know like the broad sweeps and what's new with the FOIA technology.
Great, thank you. And they're pretty much exchanging ideas in the chat, which is really great. I think this collaborative thing is going to be really helpful. So if you haven't checked out the chat, you might find something interesting, but thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anybody have any last questions before we wrap up? We appreciate James Jacobs from Stanford being here very early in the morning for him and for his contributions in this area. All right. I will, you're excused for being late. So we will send the recording out, send the slides. If you have any follow-up, please reach out. And thank you again to Zachary Fetter and Chelsea Barrett and Sharon Eanes for your help. And I hope you get to check out some events at New York City Open Data Week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa. And there is a survey in the chat posted by Sharon Ince. If you could please fill that out, we'd be really appreciative. And again, thank you for attending.